So just a few days ago, this brand new open world survival MMO was revealed called The Day Before. They released a short gameplay trailer and it looks legitimately amazing. What they showed is super appealing for someone like myself. Like, I loved everything about it, honestly. You can almost immediately draw comparisons to games like The Division and Last of Us with the look and the setting, and you combine that with the fact that it's been revealed that this is again, survival MMO that is going to have open world PvP and all of the thrill and danger that those kind of games can bring. On the pitch itself, I am sold, and a lot of other people are too. The game's been garnering a ton of hype. You'll find all sorts of early impression videos from YouTubers about just how amazing this thing looks, and initially, I would agree. Although after just a little bit of digging, there are a few red flags I think we should be aware of. Namely, the game's developer, FNTASTIC, doesn't have a fantastic track record. I know it's a bad joke, I'd made it though. But I am holding out hope that it won't matter and that they can actually deliver on this game, because I'm loving the idea of this hybrid Division, Last of Us, like zombie survival MMO PvP game. Like, yes, please sign me off on that. So I want to first jump in by giving like the official description and all of the details we know about the game as of now. So they're calling The Day Before, again, an open world MMO survival game set in a deadly post-pandemic America overrun by flesh-hungry infected and survivors who are fighting over food, weapons, and cars. You'll be able to search abandoned vehicles, homes, and skyscrapers as you scavenge for various resources. You'll be fighting off infected as well as other players with these realistic weapons, and you get to explore this beautiful yet dangerous place with these stunningly detailed vehicles, they say. Also, one big part of the game is your participation in the restoration of society with this survivors colony where you can go to sell loot as well as communicate safely with other players. So those are the official details from the game's website, the Steam page, all of that. Now I want to go over the trailer because the trailer itself gave us a lot of information. So the thing opens up with the players driving a vehicle, which they communicate with in-game VoIP apparently, that it is running out of fuel, so there will be some sort of fuel management for vehicles in the game. In the corner of the screen, we can also see, besides the health bar, that there are meters for temperature, energy, and thirst. So there will obviously be some sort of survival mechanisms tied directly to these. They get out of the car, they say they're going to split up and whatever, and then we see the main point of view player interacting with this abandoned vehicle. They open up the door, they go through the search animation, and then pops up a loot screen where you can see the player model as well as slots for their gear and weapons, any inventory space that they have, as well as the loot that is available in the car. And I gotta say, through this whole scene, I just love how this game looks. It's just absolutely gorgeous. We've got this densely populated city. It's set during the holiday season. It reminds me so much of my experiences with the first Division, which I absolutely loved. Like the whole launch period of the Division and the Dark Zone and everything about it. I had a great time playing solo as a rogue or just grouping up with my friends. It's just very fond memories, and this game is pulling a lot of that up for me. So after this, we see the character walking up to this abandoned shop, and it's really cool. There's this situation where the holiday music is playing from inside of the shop, and then when you open the doors, it becomes a lot more. I just love the atmosphere that this whole setup has been building. Now, as the player enters the shop, we see them walking up to a soda machine. They loot the machine and then take a drink, which subsequently fills up the thirst meter. Again, obviously, there are these survival mechanisms. And then at this point, you see some other players appearing. And we know these are other players because the narrator mentions that they are. A group of other players walks into the shop, and this is where we get our first look at the gunplay. It's a third-person game, obviously, as you can see. And it's basically what you expect. I actually really like the simplistic style that they're going for with the user interface, as well as just the weapon reticle. It's just this tiny little circle. You see some weapon spread when the firing is happening. You also at one point see a grenade being tossed. And it does appear like the player is using a controller simply based off of the aiming and the movement that is used here. So it looks like even though this is a game coming to Steam first, it is going to have controller support apparently. After the fight, we see the player then looting the enemies that he took down. And at this point, it looks like you're able to actually take whatever gear or weapons that they were using. So this appears to be a game with like full loot on it. You can take whatever you kill off of other players. And I also at this point want to say, up until this point in the trailer, all of the animations look absolutely fantastic. Just at the very start, when you see the player getting out and opening the car door and then walking and to stand next to his friend, and then just the idle animations, the looting animations when he interacts with the cars or the soda machine, and even the animations when the crouching and the fighting has happened, everything looks really smooth. It doesn't look like stiff and janky. I think the animations, what we see here, looks really great. Anyways, let's continue with the trailer. So after the fight and the looting of those players, we see the main player heading outside. At this point, a snowstorm begins and the temperature drops. The narrator makes this clear.
The snowstorm is starting right now, and the temperature is falling fast.
And to go ahead and back this up, checking out those survival meters in the corner, you notice that the temperature meter is dropping while the snowstorm is happening. Now, with all this gunfight going on with the main player and the enemy players, this fire, this noise draws in the zombies. So there are these infected creatures inhabiting this world, not just other players. At this point, we see the player fighting them back with a few shots, just like one shot each, as he runs towards this large building. And then going inside of the building with a horde of zombies coming at him, he then steps around the side into an elevator. At this point, the elevator starts automatically moving, and we see some of the game's crafting. It looks like you can make both consumables and equipment with some basic resources. Like, for example, these herbs and a rag are used to make bandages. And then after the player makes bandages, we see him use them to heal up. Next, the elevator stops at what I'm assuming is the only floor that it goes to, since it was automatically moving. It's a really dark location, and we see the player actually what looks to be manually turning on a flashlight. What's revealed is a horde of sleeping zombies, and the trailer wraps up with the main player looking for his friend. He realizes his friend's been eaten by zombies, and he apparently shoots, why would you do that? Your friend's dead already. The floor is filled with zombies. The shooting's gonna wake them all up. We know it's gonna, anyway, it's dramatic, right? Yeah. So I should note as well, at the very beginning of this trailer, there was a watermark right on the bottom saying that this is all in-game footage, although quite clearly the whole thing is incredibly scripted. It's very obvious that this is like not a natural play session. I mean, well, for one, both the narration and the fake player communications were just hilariously bad. There were so many awkward moments, not just even the player interaction.
All right. I have found a great cowboy hat. Tell her everything's all right. And there aren't any more guns in the valley.
Easy, cowboy.
But the reading of the narration, and I'm not even blaming the person doing the narrating, like the script that he was reading from.
The snowstorm is starting right now, and the temperature is falling fast.
The sentence structure was just, this is like not, the team making this are not native English speakers. It came off, but it's fine, whatever. That is not indicative of how the quality of the game is.
Now he's crafting a bandage so he doesn't die from bleeding.
We got some actually more information about the game coming from a developer post on the Steam community page. So it starts off with the developer thanking everyone for their initial interest in the game. He says that this is their biggest and best game yet, all thanks to their partnership with Mytona, one of the world's largest mobile game publishers. Has me a little concerned about monetization in this game, mobile game, but whatever. Moving on. And then he moves into the short FAQ, giving some basic details about common questions for the game. So the first question was asking about the game world, and he said that the day before features this huge detailed open world that will include large cities, towns, snow-capped mountains, rivers, and forests, and also the survival colony where you can talk to inhabitants, hang out with other players. In terms of the PvP, he says that this is a PvP focused game, but even though it's PvP focused, there will be apparently some interesting activities for PvE lovers, but no details on what that could mean. In terms of the gameplay, he says that the day before will bring innovation to the long stagnant MMO survival genre. Besides the fact that the game looked great and the animations were really good in the trailer, I didn't see anything necessarily innovative, but he says here to stay tuned. They're going to reveal more details about whatever this innovation is going to be. He mentions as well detail that there will be full gamepad support, which there we go. That confirms that it looked like the player was playing on a gamepad, and apparently he was. And in terms of the trailer, he mentions that the announcement trailer was all in-game footage, as reaffirmed by that watermark. However, we're still in the process of developing and improving the game. So yeah, the game's not done. Changes are going to be made. And like so many early gameplay scripted trailers, the final game, good chance it's not going to look exactly like it looks here. Really good chance, as this was most certainly a vertical slice. That like everything that we saw might be all that's actually literally playable in the game at the moment. That tends to happen with these early gameplay scripted reveal trailers. And in terms of the engine, how does this game look so good? It's being developed on the latest version of Unreal Engine. That is Unreal Engine 4. Awesome, great. Again, that if nothing else, what the game look is fantastic right now. Okay, so far I think so good. The game looks great. I love the visuals, just the general concept of the game, as well as the setting that they have. It all sounds promising. However, as I mentioned, I did a little digging and we learned some more details about who's making the game. So the developer, again, is called FNTASTIC, and their prior work includes 3 games that I could find. Their very first game was called The Wild 8. This was a top-down survival action-adventure game set in the frozen wilderness of Alaska. So this thing launched into Steam Early Access back in 2017, and early on it actually had pretty decent reviews. It averaged a 7 out of 10 on both Open and Metacritic, and overall received mostly positive review scores on Steam. However, recent reviews haven't been so great, as apparently the game never got finished. It went into Steam Early Access in 2017 and was just never really completed. Now, it's worth noting in this situation, though, in 2017, actually just a few months after the game launched in Early Access, FNTASTIC, the developer, sold the game to their publisher, Hype Train Digital, for the reason being, they say, was internal conflict with partners within the company. So there was some sort of drama going on, and just a few months after launching into Early Access, they sold the game off before they finished it. So not the greatest look, but it's also not technically their fault that the game never got finished, because they sold it right after they launched it. Anyways, so that was their first game. Their second game was called Dead Dozen. This was a multiplayer action horror game. You had to loot, barricade, and work with your team trying to survive against these like zombie-like enemies. Now, what's interesting about Dead Dozen is it actually released on March 7th, 2018. So this was just a year after the early access launch of their prior game. It launched for $25, and I could find no big reviews. There was actually no review scores on either Open or Metacritic for this game. And typically what that means is it wasn't a game worth paying attention for people. Like it made such little splash that no outlets thought it was worth it to make a review. So there were no like big reviews out there, but on Steam, well, it has mixed reviews. And I want to give you some excerpts from the top rated negative. It's the top rated review score. It is a negative review score on Steam. Here's a few snippets from that. This isn't ready for public play. The game is pretty dead, peak of around 5 players each day. It runs horribly, is unoptimized, and the settings don't save. The game is buggy and laggy. There was literally one server with 4 people on it, and it took me 10 minutes to even join. The game crashed 3 times in 20 minutes. It's a nice start. I think he's being generous there, but definitely not worth $25. And then he also says that he was permanently banned from their discussion board for posting "This game is dead, beware." Now, this review was posted on March 20th. So the game launched on March 7th in early access. It was posted, this review posted on March 20th, and then development for this game was halted on June 2018. So their first game, The Wild 8, goes into early access in 2017. They sell it to their publisher just a few months later. 1 year after that, they released this game, The Dead Dozen. It gets horrible reviews, isn't even worth being reviewed by big outlets, and then development stops just a couple of months after this game comes out. So their most recent game is called The Radiant One. This is a story-driven adventure game with this kind of dreamlike quality. In fact, the game is actually about lucid dreaming, and this one actually looks interesting for a phone game, which it is. This is initially an iOS game. The iOS version actually has okay reviews. It's got an 82 on Metacritic. The game was ported ported to PC. The Steam version does have mostly positive reviews, so that's good. But apparently the game's length is like 40 minutes. It's only $2.99 though, so it's a cheap game. So I guess the Radiant one, you could say, compared to the prior two games, the Radiant one at least it has a decent aura around it. Like it had decent phone version. But most of you watching this probably don't care about phone games, right? Because that's not typically my audience for this channel, and you're probably not the audience for a PC MMO survival game, which this video is talking about. So, and then one more thing I have to say. When I was putting this whole thing together just yesterday, when you go to the developer's YouTube channel, they had videos up on their channel for the Radiant one and Dead Dozen, so two of their prior games. They didn't have videos for the Wild 8 because they sold that game off, but Dead Dozen and Radiant one had videos up on the developer's YouTube channel. Today, they're gone. They either set them to private or they deleted them, but you can no longer see those videos. A move that I assume means they're looking to distance themselves from their prior work, right? Like clearly, this isn't the YouTube channel for this new game. This is just the developer's YouTube channel. So them removing their prior games that they worked on means they kind of don't want to highlight those things, you assume. And also interesting is if you go to the developer's website and you click on what games have you worked on, they don't list the Dead Dozen. So the Dead Dozen was by far the worst of the games that they've released so far, and they just are pretending on their website that they didn't even make it. So now look, with all of that said, none of this is necessarily indicative of how this new game, Day Before, is going to turn out. It does, because these are prior games. Maybe they have a lot more funding and maybe they have a bigger team and they're making a better game. And I also want to say with all of this, I'm rooting for this thing. Like I am all on board with the concept, the setting, open world MMO survival. I think the trailer looked fantastic, but I think we should just be aware that what the developer's done so far hasn't been great. There's some little almost shady moves with them distancing themselves from their prior games, especially the ones that didn't do so well. Just some things, I think, some red flags, I guess you should say. All those other YouTubers have posted those videos just reacting to that trailer. I'm on board because when I first saw the trailer, I totally agree. This looks and sounds freaking amazing. If they can deliver on the general concept and the things they're talking about, I am all for it, dude. I mean, I even played a ton of that, the Shammy one, the Warzy, those early like those early zombie survival games. When I loved it. I like all sorts of open world MMO games, even the zombie survival genre. You don't see me talk about it here a lot on the channel, but I really do. It's just, they're really fun. Like they can be really shitty, but they can be really, really fun. Anyways, that is an overview of the Day Before. That's what I think you should know about everything we know about the game, what it should be, but also what's the track record of the developer. And yeah, it's not fantastic. I won't make that joke ever again. I'm lying. I probably will. Okay, well, thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was informative. And hey, man, knock on wood. Hope this thing turns out good. Okay? Yeah. Do better than you've done before. We'll say that. All right? Take it easy, guys.